Hello, please use this video on area and perimeter to learn and review about the topic. Remember that you can use the Nebraska Student-Centered Assessment System reference sheet on any homework assignment, formative, summative, and the state test later this year. Take some time to familiarize yourself with all of the formulas that you can use on this sheet. It will be very helpful. To find the circumference and area of a circle, I simply start by writing down the appropriate formula. For example, I know that the formula for finding circumference first, I go over to my reference sheet, and I see that circumference of a circle is equal to pi times diameter. Once I copy the formula, I simply substitute the values that I need. I know that I want to use 3.14 for pi, and my diameter, which goes all the way across my circle, is 8. So I take 3.14 times 8. And heck, you can even type this into the calculator. When you type in 3.14 times 8, you get 25 and 12/100ths. And circumference, remember, is like putting a fence around your swimming pool. So that would be 25.12 inches. Circumference is not squared. To do area of my circle, I go find my formula for area of the circle, and I just copy that down. Area is equal to pi times radius squared. Again, I'm going to substitute 3.14 for 5. And my radius, remember, is only half of my circle. So if it's 8 all the way across for my diameter, my radius would be 4. So that's times my radius squared, or 4 squared. That means 3.14 times 16. When you do 3.14 times 16, you get 50.24. Now remember, we're talking about area. Whenever we're talking about area, it's how many squares it takes to cover. So that would be 50.24 inches squared. Let's talk about how to find circumference and area of a circle on the coordinate plane. If you notice, there are no numbers. Your diameter and your radius are not given. However, you can figure that out by counting. For example, I'm going to draw on the grid here, but you can see that the radius is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my radius is 5, which means that all the way across would be 10. So all you have to do is count, and then you can use those accordingly with your formulas. So to start, let's do circumference. Again, I go look at circumference on my cheat sheet, and there it is. Circumference is equal to pi times diameter. Remember, you can do 2 times pi times the radius. My favorite is to do pi times diameter because it only involves multiplying 2 numbers. But then I'm going to substitute 3.14 times my diameter, which is 10. I don't need a calculator to multiply 3.14 times 10 because the trick of multiplying by a decimal is moving it over 1. So my circumference is 31.4. And since there is no measurement labeled, you simply always just call it units. So that's 31.4 units. Now for area, again, I go find my formula. So area of a circle is pi times radius squared. So I start with my formula, pi times radius squared, and then I substitute the appropriate values. Instead of pi, I use 3.14. My radius halfway across the circle is 5 squared. So then I have 3.14 times 25. You can go ahead and use your calculator if you want to. And when you multiply those together, you get 78.5. And again, you would use the label units, and it's squared since you are finding area. Now let's do some practice of finding perimeter and area of composite figures. This simply involves splitting your figures up into two manageable figures that you can find the area of. I'm going to split this one here, although you could split it the other way. But in doing so, I create two rectangles, or perhaps a square. First, I'm going to look at this rectangle. Since I know that it's a rectangle, I know that my formula for a rectangle is base times height. So I'm going to do base times height. My base on this would match my number at the top. So my base is 6 and my height is 2. So I plug that in. My base is 6, my height is 2. The area of that first rectangle is a total of 12. Now let's look at the other piece. So first, I know that the side on the left is 2. So I've already accounted for that. But I know that the whole piece down here is 5, which leaves me with 3 left. So then I look at that and I can see, oh, that's a square. So I go check my formula sheet, and to find the area of a square, area is equal to side squared, or side times side, and each side is 3. So 3 squared is 9. So when I add those up, I get a total area of 21 feet squared. Again, remember those composite figures, you're just adding more than one together. Now the perimeter, I'm going to start from scratch here. The perimeter is the distance around the outside. So I'm going to grab a different color, maybe use green, and I know that this side is 5. And remember, perimeter is just adding up the distance around the outside. It's like putting a fence up. This part is 3. This part I already figured out earlier. That piece was 3. Now this part right here is also 3, because together I need that whole piece to be 6, and I know that this part is 3. Then I also have the 2, then I have my last piece, which is 6. And then I just add those up for a total of 8, 11, 13, a perimeter of 19 feet. Again, perimeter is not squared. Let's do this again. First, I'm going to find the area, because you do not know the distance or the length of the slants up here on the triangle. And we're not going to worry about that until we know how to do the Pythagorean theorem, which will come later. So for this example, we're only going to stick with area. So I have two shapes. I have a triangle and I have a rectangle. And it doesn't matter which one you do first. I'm going to go ahead and stick with rectangle. And rectangle is area is equal to length times width. So area is equal to length times width. And here is my rectangle. My length is 24. And my width is 8. Remember, you can also substitute base times height if you want to do that instead. You do the multiplication. 24 times 8 is 192. So the area of this piece right here is 192 feet squared. And then I'm going to go look at my triangle. And I go look at my formula for triangle, and that is 1/2 times base times the height, or you can take base times height divided by 2. Those are the same thing. So when I look at the base of my triangle, I know that it's 24. But I need to figure out how tall this piece is right here, which we consider the height. So basically, I'm looking from here to here. I know that the whole thing is 12, and I know that this part was 8, which leaves me a height of 4. So I'm going to plug that in. My base is 24. My height is 4. I would take perhaps half of 24, which is 12, and take 12 times 4, which is 48 feet squared. And then to find my composite area, I would add those together. 192 plus 48 is a total area of 240 feet squared. On this final example, I'm going to break this figure into a trapezoid and half of a circle. First, I'm going to look at the trapezoid. Here is my outline. So then I go grab the formula for area of a trapezoid, which is right here. So I start by writing that. Area is equal to 1/2 times my height times the quantity of my two bases added together. The two bases are always the two parallel sides. Doesn't matter which one you write in first. I'm going to do 20 plus 32. The height of my trapezoid is 14. Once I get all of those values plugged in, it's a matter of using order of operations. I'm going to do my parentheses first, which is 52. Then I drop down my multiplication, and so I have 1/2 times 14 times 52. Remember, you can use a calculator. So when you type that all in, the area of your trapezoid is 364 millimeters squared. And then we'll move on to the half circle, or the semicircle. So to solve the area of your circle, I'm going to start with the area of the circle, the formula, which is pi times radius squared. And then I'm going to look at that and think, that's not a full circle, that's just half a circle. So whatever my area is, I'm going to take half of that. So I'm going to take 1/2 times 3.14 times my radius. We know that all the way across is 20, so my radius would be 10. And 10 squared is 100. So I have 1/2 times 3.14 times 100. And that gives you a total of 157 millimeters squared. But remember, you're not done. You have to add these two together. So you have to add together 364 plus 147. Which gives you your total area. I'm going to write it up here in the corner. A total area of 521 millimeters squared.
Hi guys! Remember, everybody can be good at math. She work hard.